looking at live pictures of an Israeli military base where any moment now we'll see 21-year-old Idan Alexander, who was just freed from Hamas captivity. He was just released to the IDF. So I want to bring back in CNN's Jeremy Diamond, who is live for us in Tel Aviv. So Jeremy, tell us what the latest is.
Well, Mano, I'm here in Hostages Square, where there's really been a celebratory atmosphere over the course of the last hour, as people here have been listening with bated breath to every single update. As Idan Alexander was transferred by Hamas to the Red Cross, as he was then en route to Israeli forces, and now, moments ago, as we learned that Idan Alexander is indeed in the hands of the Israeli military, on his way to meet with his mother, to embrace her for the first time in more than 19 months at an Israeli military base just outside of Gaza. We've also now seen a photo of Idan Alexander standing on his own 2 feet next to a Red Cross official, as well as several masked Hamas gunmen. And while it's difficult to draw too many conclusions from one photo, we did just hear from his father on Israel's Channel 12 saying that while he looked a little bit pale and weak, that he said, "That's my boy." And so certainly the fact that he's able to stand on his own 2 feet after 19 months of captivity is obviously a positive initial indication. Now, of course, there are questions about by the families of the other 58 remaining hostages still held in Gaza about what this deal, which was brokered not by the Israeli government but by the United States to get this American citizen out of Gaza, what it means for the other hostages who don't have American citizenship, who just have, in many cases, Israeli citizenship. And there is certainly hope that perhaps this agreement to release Idan Alexander could unlock a broader deal to secure the release of all of the other hostages, to perhaps even end the war in Gaza, or at least to get to some kind of a ceasefire that will see hostages coming out of the Gaza Strip, and of course much needed calm in Gaza and much needed aid to go into the Gaza Strip for the more than 2 million civilians who live there. We know that tomorrow an Israeli delegation will be traveling to Doha, Qatar to try and work on that broader negotiation. And all of this, of course, is happening because of enormous diplomatic effort and pressure that is now being brought to bear by the United States and by President Trump, who said that he very much sees this release of Idan Alexander as a first of the final steps towards ending this war in Gaza and releasing all of the remaining hostages held there.
And just to direct our viewers, that picture you're seeing on the screen is the one that was just released of Idan Alexander, now in the hands of the IDF, being ultimately going to be transported over to a hospital where he'll be evaluated. He's going to be reunited with his mother as well. Jeremy, I want to ask you about Prime Minister Netanyahu, what we've heard from his office about this news, and whether they actually see this as potentially something that could lead to a ceasefire deal that could ultimately end up with the release of the remaining Israeli hostages.
Well, look, they are not saying this publicly, but the Israeli government got completely bypassed in this deal, got completely sidelined by the Trump administration, which worked directly with the Egyptians and the Qataris to talk to Hamas and to secure the release of this Israeli soldier with American citizenship, Idan Alexander. And it comes at a time when the Israeli prime minister had been preparing for something much different, at a time when he had said that the supreme goal of Israel's war in Gaza was not the release of the hostages, but the defeat of Hamas and Israel's enemies. And now we are seeing the momentum really shifting in a very different direction, as he is being put under enormous pressure now to secure another deal to free more Israeli hostages. He is stressing that while he is engaging in these negotiations, that these negotiations will be held under fire, with the Israeli military continuing to carry out airstrikes and ground activity in the Gaza Strip. But he will engage in these negotiations, and he will face enormous pressure from both the Israeli public as well as from the American government to reach a new deal.
All right, Jeremy Diamond from Tel Aviv, and we're going to continue to watch these pictures as we get more news. We'll be right back with you on this very busy day.
I want to bring in Chief National Security Correspondent Alex Marquardt for more on this and the extraordinary negotiations that led to this moment. Alex.
This is a moment of hope for these families after 3 months. 3 months ago, the ceasefire fell apart and the war resumed. Now there is an opening for these other hostage families to welcome home their loved ones. They are rejoicing at the release of Idaan Alexander. As you know, Wolf, he is a very young man. He grew up in the U.S. and then went back to Israel, where he was born, to serve in the IDF. And I was speaking with someone who works with the hostage families earlier today, who said that they hope this will be an opening to put more pressure, as Jeremy was mentioning, on Prime Minister Netanyahu to get to a deal. It is not only good news that Alexander is getting released today. We understand that he's in relatively good condition. That, of course, is going to be the first question. But that this will give way to further talks in Doha, which has hosted so many of these talks over the past few months. Key questions will be who is on that Israeli negotiating team. If it is the senior members of Netanyahu's government, like Ron Dermer and David Barnea, the head of Mossad, then we know that Israel really is taking this seriously. This is an incredible moment because this is a side deal, essentially, that the U.S. struck with Hamas. I was told by Steve Witkoff yesterday, the Middle East envoy, that there were not direct negotiations with Hamas, but that it was brokered again through Egypt and Qatar. But it is a side deal that the U.S. and Hamas struck to get Idaan Alexander home. Hamas here is clearly trying to show this as a goodwill gesture. They're not getting hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in exchange. They're trying to,
right?
No, they're trying to curry favor with the Trump administration and have the Trump administration put this pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu. You have 58 families, the families of the 58 remaining hostages, both alive, and we understand there are 20 of them, and the remaining deceased, who today are seeing the release of Alexander, sharing in the Alexander family's joy, but asking, why has Prime Minister Netanyahu not struck a deal to get our loved ones home as well?
I want to bring in CNN political and global affairs analyst Barak Ravid. Barak, you're doing a lot of reporting on all of this. What else are you learning about what actually went into this deal?
Well, Wolf, I think what we know is that those negotiations started, I think, something like 5 days ago. Hamas has tried to resurrect some sort of a channel with the Trump administration for like 3 weeks, and only 5 days ago, this has turned into a more serious negotiation through an intermediary. And I think what White House envoy Steve Witkoff told Hamas is, you release Idaan Alexander ahead of the president's trip to the region, it's going to go a long way with him. You're going to buy yourself a lot of credit with the president of the United States. You want to do it and take a chance? Do it. You don't want to do it, then most likely Trump is not going to do anything for you, and you will see the Israelis moving into Gaza. And I think that was one of the main issues here, that Hamas wanted to do something to stop Israel from broadening and expanding its ground operation. The question is if there'll be any continuity. If Donald Trump today, when he spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu, whether he told them, Mr. Netanyahu, you need to get a deal and end this war. It's still not clear exactly what he told him.
All right, let's bring in CNN's Elena Treen at the White House for more context on the timing of this, Elena.
Yeah, the timing here, Pamela, is so crucial. What Barak just laid out is exactly right. I mean, the Trump administration has been making clear, and specifically, of course, Steve Witkoff, that doing this right as the president is departing, he is currently in the air heading to the Middle East, is such a crucial step. And the president himself, he said this first yesterday on Truth Social, that he sees it as a, quote, a step taken in good faith, and of course credited the Qataris and Egypt's role in mediating some of this. But then even just moments ago, right before he left the White House to start to get on the plane and head to the Middle East, he said that he really hopes that Hamas will continue to release hostages. He really celebrated the fact that they were going to be releasing Idaan Alexander, and so noting in the moment that he sees this as sort of a goodwill gesture. And that's really what I think, Hamas had wanted here. And notable as well, I just think you have to note that, the president is going to the Middle East. He's going to be visiting Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. He is is not stopping in Israel. And some of that comes, as we know from our reporting and discussions with Trump administration officials, that the president has been frustrated with how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been handling the war right now between Israel and Hamas. And so all of this timing so crucial for this release, for how the president is going to be thinking about this, and really how he's going to want to be approaching the broader ceasefire and other hostage talks that are still to come.